Hey folks, how you doing? You know who it is, your favorite person, back like we never left. Welcome to the NAMCA podcast, National Association of Masterminds and Co-Curricular Advancement, where we look to provide the best professional and personal development for higher ed professionals who want to improve from the inside out while giving a better quality of life and skill set. And then also pairing performers, speakers, professionals who look to entertain, edutain, and educate audiences across the youth and college landscape on how to properly connect with the audience that is higher ed and how to give a service in the proper ways so they're vetted and that they are prepared to be their best selves in front of others so everyone collectively can be their best self. My name is Sam Pearson II. So happy to be here, and I have an amazing guest like none other before. You know, people know I don't overstate anything. So I'm really happy to have Lauren Svendsen. If you don't know who she is, you should, but you're about to. Please welcome, wherever you are, clap your hands, stomp your feet for Lauren Svendsen.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for being here. How you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, doing good.
So thank you for being here and us being able to have this time together. And I told you this was going to happen, the moment we've all been waiting for. I want you right now, for the next 60 seconds, maybe more if you have to, brag on yourself unapologetically. Tell us how amazing you are and something that we wouldn't know about you just by looking at you.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, that's going to be a really fun fact at the end. But as you said, my name is Lauren Svendsen. I currently work at Dominican University, been there for an entire year now. So started in the middle of COVID. So, working remotely, trying to make new connections, all that jazz, all that funness. So I'm currently working there. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Life. So like I said, been there since last August. And then the fun fact that you wouldn't know about me is I'm a professional dodgeball player. So I go and I travel and I play dodgeball.
You said dodgeball?
Dodgeball, correct.
Stop it.
Yep.
I freaking love. What made you get into dodgeball?
So way back in the day when I was in high school, my best friend, we were the only two females who normally went, but she went and she's like, I need more people there who are my friends. And so she dragged me, and then I'm still there. She has since moved on to Minnesota. So she's a little bit farther out, but I'm still there. I still attend. And I got to be sure that like people are up and coming, be like, you know what, don't underestimate females. Like, we'll surprise you.
I love it. Now, just if it's okay, now I just want to hear like your coolest dodgeball story. I mean, we'll get into the other stuff for sure. So, do you have a coolest dodgeball story?
See, probably it was back in, I think, 2019. I was in Texas for the national tournament, since that was the first time I played nationals, and we were the first women's league. So we have leagues all across the nation. We have different like divisions, like the North, South, West, East. We were actually the first team from the North of women's who were not Canada. We have Canadian teams as well, but we were the first women's USA team to go and actually go down there. So that was probably the coolest thing that we did.
Congratulations. Yeah. I'm stoked now. All right, we'll talk more about that offline. That's super cool. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And also something interesting. So you mentioned that you've been a Dominican for a year. So we're talking mid-COVID.
Correct.
How was that search? Or if you don't mind, we know that different searches can be what searches are. But what was that like looking for and finding an opportunity and being where you are mid-pandemic?
Oh, it was most definitely interesting. So obviously, it was like that perfect storm of, I knew I was leaving my last institution. It was an entry-level position. I'd been there 3 years. I was like, okay, I'm ready to leave. And then COVID hit in, March, when I would naturally be starting to job search. And obviously we shut down. I'm like, okay, I have a job that I need to go and find now because my contract's about to be up. I was also location bound. So I actually ended up moving back home for a bit, and I was searching around the area, found Dominican University, and it was just a natural fit. I went to a small private for my undergrad institution, and it just felt natural to go back to a small private for my next step.
I love it. What do you think the benefits are of being at small institutions?
Sure. So I think the one thing that is a great benefit is you get to know people very well. So whenever I'm like, who do I need to go to for XYZ? Probably one person knows XYZ. And so we're kind of the master of trades. I know we always joke about having a lot of different hats to put on. I think at smaller institutions, that is very much true, is you get to go and dabble in a lot of different things. Mostly because you have to kind of know a little bit about everything. But it's also really nice because when I need something, I know the person I need to go to, and it's like one of two people. And you get to create those actual really good relationships and connections with them.
Awesome. That's crazy. So when it comes to student affairs, is this something that you wanted to do, that you were aware of when you were an undergrad? If it fell into your lap, what was the journey? I'm sure it was magical, like a movie. Or you can tell me the truth. What happened?
I feel like most people stumble into this field unless you know, like you have like a parent, grandparent, or like someone in your family or close friend who is in this field, you stumble in on it. And that was most definitely me. I stumbled in on this. I was an RA for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I got to senior year, and like most people are saying, what are you going to do when you graduate? And you give that little chuckle of, haha, I have no idea. So I was actually really grateful. I had a great mentor and supervisor. Her name was Corey West. And she was a fantastic mentor and said, hey, you are someone who you seem to really love your job as an RA. Would you consider doing this for a living? And it never occurred to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, you also do this as a living. This is a career. This is a job. And so I ended up going and pursuing that path this way. So I kind of stumbled into this.
It's also like, oh, these nice people are volunteering their lives for us. It's like,
kind
no.
of. It's like, no, you actually get paid. Like, this is a job. It's a career field.
I had no idea. It's so interesting that it's kind of, I don't know, the phrase is like, you can't see the forest for the trees or something like that.
Yeah.
It never dawns on you that, oh, duh. It's amazing. I was talking to a guy. He's an amazing director at the University of Michigan named Steve Bodai. And we're talking about housing, being a hall director, working in housing. And my question was, even outside of student affairs, what's a job where you feel like everyone should have? And if they did, there'd be better human beings. And we were like, you know what? He said hall director. And I'm like, that's definitely my top 3 to 5 things. Like, some people say servers or in other industries. What are some professions you feel like, you know what? Everybody should do this and they'd be better human beings?
I think you're spot on with the server as far as just being someone who has to put in the work. Honestly, so I hate blood, I hate needles, but just being a nurse or just someone who's being in a life of service, who you are there to help other people, to serve others, any of that type of industry where you don't necessarily make the shots, but you are there for the care of someone else, whether that's I'm a server, I'm getting food, or I'm a nurse and I need to go and, help get your meals, help like draw blood, whatever it may be. I think whatever job that's related to that service aspect of I am here for the care and well-being of another human being. I think those are the type of jobs that are the most impactful. And I wish everyone would have to hopefully start developing that empathy, because I think that's really the ultimate goal of those types of jobs, is develop that human connection and empathy.
Thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely agree. Because it also provides different perspective. Sometimes people don't care until they're forced to care.
Correct.
But when you have an opportunity to work in those fields, you're absolutely right. And certainly in housing, residence life, you see things that everyone else doesn't see.
Yes, so true.
Ever had a late night before?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yep. I'm on call for my job. So yep. Yes. Just yep.
And for those of y'all watching who've never been in housing before, a late night in housing is different than, oh, I've done a late night before. I've done an all nighter. No, not on call. You haven't. You just haven't. I'm just throwing it out there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great. And also just having an appreciation. So for students who may stumble upon this particular podcast or listen to this or watch this at some point, yeah, show some grace. Show some grace. Okay? All right. Now I'm done. Now we can move on. So what are some skill sets you feel like you've developed or learned in your career? And now that I know you played dodgeball, is there anything that you feel like you've taken from that sport that you use now that helps you in other realms of your career or life?
Sure. So I'll go straight into that because it is so 110% true about, everything's connected. You learn from not only your career field, but outside, the things that you do, the extracurriculars that you're involved in. So going straight into dodgeball, things I've learned. So I've been playing there since high school, and I am well past high school at this point. And we've had new people come in, but we've also had, I'm going to call myself an oldie, who have stayed there for a while. Yeah. And the thing that you find is the reliance of your teammates. And that's something that is so true, not even in the sport, but also in my career today. Whereas you need to rely on other people. So when I'm on the court, I'm playing with my friends who, my oldies, we've been there for a while now. We know each other. We have a rhyme. We have a reason. We know that, hey, if they're going up to throw and you have a ball, you need to be sure that you're covering them. Be sure that the other team doesn't throw at them while they're throwing and they're open. And it's a lot of that just very natural flow, that teamwork. And we just know you have that rhythm, you have that groove, kind of relaying that back to student affairs, it's creating that team and that just knowing. So I supervise 2 grad students and they are amazing individuals. I love them. Like they make my life so much easier. But we have started, obviously grad students are only there for about 2 years. And so it's hard to create a consistent flow. But I really try hard at the beginning of this semester to create some type of flow of I'm relying on you, you can rely on me. So it's kind of that seamless, when you're throwing, I'm protecting you. When I'm throwing, you're protecting me. And so it's really relying on your teammates to do their job, help them when they need help, but then also rely on them to help you when you need help. So kind of that ebb and flow of helping that teamwork.
Yeah. And this is going to sound like a silly question, but is it all possible that teammates don't always get along or love each other?
Oh, 110%. So I think at that point, it's a lot of it is figuring out, okay, what's the issue here? Is it something that, okay, we just don't like each other because our personality clash, but I can still support you. It's like, I might be a cat person, you're a dog person, but I can still defend you. But when it comes to more pressing issues of, okay, this might be a question of like ethics, something a little bit more deep and personal, that's when you need to have those more difficult conversations and figure out who do we need to bring in or what do we need to bring in to resolve this? Because maybe it's something above our knowledge of how to go and have this conversation about.
I really appreciate that. You mentioned conversations, and you mentioned obviously, having your grad assistants that are rock stars. I'm sure you probably give them some great insight or advice or have great conversations. Or what would be some advice you give to the younger version of you? Because I'm imagining that there's probably some younger professionals that are watching this or folks who end up in the field. What advice would you give them, or some insight on how to enjoy and take the greatest advantage of being in student affairs?
I would say don't let this be you, if that makes sense. And I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean.
Okay.
Where the one reason I came into student affairs was I really wanted to go and see students be successful. That was the whole reason. I wanted to see them start off maybe not knowing what they were doing, or maybe they knew exactly what they were doing, and really help them grow and develop, get the skills they needed, figure out where they're going, even if that's this school isn't for me. I want to go to a trade school, or I want to do something different, take a year off. Whatever success meant to them, I wanted that to be it. The advice I give is don't let their success be your success. So even if you're trying your best and a student falls through the cracks, they're like, you know what, I really can't do this, and you've done everything you can, don't let their lack of success or succeeding impact you. If you know that you've done everything you can to help a student or help a situation and it still falls apart, but you gave your 100%, don't carry that with you. Know that you have done your best and it's okay. Maybe they needed to fail. Maybe they need to pick themselves back up, and you will be there to help them or help that project whenever it comes back. So I think that's one of my advice is don't carry things with you and take days off. If you need time off, take it off, be there with your team and say, hey, I need help right now. I need assistance. I'll help you later. Please help me now.
I love that transparency. Those of you all watching, and it's, again, to your point, can end up so committed or overly committed to people, places, and things that we forget to say, not only maybe I want the day off, and you don't have to say why you need days off, but like, hey, cover me now and I will cover you later. But I need this today.
Yes.
And being willing to do that. Thank you very much for stating that. I think more people need to hear that than would ever admit. But I think even you walking them through that conversation, it could be as simple as the person, to your point about dodgeball and your team, the person knowing that you'll have their back when you do get back to take that time that you absolutely need. So thank you for mentioning that big time, Lauren. Yeah. I know that you work on tell me some projects that you're proud of, because I know that you all are practicing some things. You've completed some great events, and you have some best practices. What are some things that you're proud of or that you're working on that you feel like other people should hear about, know about, or could learn from?
Sure. So just to be sure I'm understanding your question correctly, just kind of what are we doing right now in my department that are things that I kind of want to brag about?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things that we're currently working on is really going and getting more involvement with our faculty and staff and that crossover of programming. So one thing that we started in May of 2021, very recently. So what we did was we started to bridge the gap of our faculty side, so our curricular experience and what that Common Core was, as well as the programming that we're doing. So what we've started to do is create a programming model where the language is now more aligned. So that way, when we're hosting programs as kind of the extracurricular side, the added classroom experience, we have a common language now with our faculty. So when we say, hey, this program is about personal and social responsibility, faculty are like, oh, hey, my class is related to this. Maybe this is something I should encourage my students to go to. So that's something that I'm really proud of that we're doing, is bridging that gap and really saying, okay, you want these type of experiences, we're going to provide them. Let's have that give and take and that common shared language that we need.
That's awesome. It creates engagement, it creates more attendance, and makes life easier on professors too.
Yes.
I'm sure they appreciate that also. Now, what made that happen? Did you, based on past experience, you say this would be great to do, or through conversation, masterminding goes, okay, let's do this?
Yeah, so this is actually a project that I inherited. So it was something that was a directive from our higher administration. They really were kind of seeing that disconnect of, we really want a holistic experience for our students. So how do we do that? And I was part of the planning of that, as far as, okay, these are the core curriculum. They did a modification over the last summer of what they wanted it to be. And it was kind of funny, as I was going through and modifying the programming model we had with aligning it with the core curriculum, pretty much everything stayed the same. I just changed the name of titles. And so when I presented it to the committee that I oversee, saying, hey, this is the new programming model, however, comma, look at the description. Pretty much everything stayed the same. It's just what we're calling it's now different. So it's kind of funny, as I was going through this and planning and creating these like new wonderful manuals and spreadsheets. It was, the work that we're doing was already aligned. We just didn't have the language to say, here's how it's going and aligning, and here's how we're going and getting the students to the program and getting them these experiences. And now with that alignment, we're able to have those better conversations because we have that shared language, but we haven't really changed much. We've just changed the language that we use.
Yeah, for a better connection. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that's helpful.
Yes.
Pick up something from that for sure. Last couple questions, I promise I'll let you go. When it comes to, working with vendors, you mentioned programming. So obviously, you work with vendors. What throughout the world of vendors, whether it be speakers, performers, entertainers, edutainers, and otherwise, what makes a vendor attractive to go, you know what, this is the kind of person that or people I would like to work with, or this is the best way to contact me. That's great. And also what's something like, never do this, or I'll never talk to you if you ever do this.
Yeah, I would say a lot of is that transparency piece, because obviously there's times where it's, hey, a most best example is we're trying to bring in a haunted house and it's a giant inflatable. And so one thing I really appreciated was they were very conscious of, hey, you want to have some event indoors. It's like a 48 feet by 24 feet by like 11-foot thing. Please tell us that you have the space for this before you sign this contract. So when kind of working with vendors, that transparency is great. Thankfully, we do have the space for it because we checked before we went into the haunted house. But just having additional follow-up of, are you sure you'll have the space for this, is very important. So kind of when looking at vendors and talking with them, having that transparency piece and being like, I don't want you to sign a contract and then we're all of a sudden it's like pitfall of, okay, what do we do? And then again, just that kind of that communication piece is really important of, okay, we see you see this on your website, but we kind of need this. Are you able to work with us? So that communication piece is really key. So if you don't have those two things, red flags.
No transparency, no communication, beat it. Okay, that's what Lauren is saying. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. So before we get out of here, any final words or thoughts from you for, let's say, folks just getting in to student affairs, or that seasoned person? Maybe they're a little jaded. They need, to hear something good right now. What do you have?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to make connections. So I love my former supervisor. She described me as an onion. So what she meant by that is I have a lot of layers. And she's like, Lauren, you're such a great human being. You're such a great person, but it's all layered up in that onion. She's like, peel back the layers faster. Let people get to know you. So for my fellow introverts who are out there, who are onions like myself, peel back the onion a little bit faster. And don't be afraid to just have a coffee with someone. So that's something that terrified me of, oh, they have a title, like they're above me. I'm a new entry-level position. Or currently, I now am an assistant director. And it's like, oh, well, they're like entry level. I feel weird just like talking to them, reaching out. Do it anyways. say, hey, do you want to go get coffee? Do you want to have a quick bite at lunch? Because you never know the connections that you're going to make and when they might come in handy later on down the line. So that would kind of be my advice. Don't be afraid to reach out and just be like, hey, the worst they're going to say is no.
Yeah, yes. Awesome. Lauren, you're amazing. Thank you very much for spending this time. Folks, I told you you're lucky to be listening or watching this wherever you are right now. Continue to stay connected and build yourself from the inside out. That being said, thank you all for tuning into the NAMCA podcast, National Association of Masterminds and Co-Curricular Advancement, where we look to build everyone from the inside out professionally and personally so we can rise and take off together. That being said, remember, you don't have to be perfect. Just have to be willing to make some progress because effort on fire beats knowledge on ice. This is Stan Thurston II. You heard it here first. Thanks again, Lauren. And I'll see you in those dodgeball streets. I'm not afraid. I'm very afraid.
You might want to be.